hello to our friends from around the world. Warm welcome to another episode of the Timber Exchange webinar and podcast, hosted by myself, Amir Rashad, CEO and founder of Timber Exchange. We're here today to discuss the Egyptian timber market, both its analysis and outlook. And as usual, this webinar is brought to you by Timber Exchange, your partner to track the global timber market, automating export processes and industrial customer service, and now also timber inspection. And this week's guest is none other than the market leader, SWEFL Timber Trading's very own Mr. Abdelrehman Mubasher. But before we start, there's a short announcement. You might recognize myself from various industry events. A former commodity trader turned market analyst and keynote speaker. I've spoken at most forestry conferences around the world. And since 4 years, we were just discussing this before going live, we have been running this webinar and podcast series where we interview market leaders from around the world nearly every 2 weeks. And it's become actually the biggest library of market insights so that you can hear directly from market leaders. And Timber Exchange has become the most comprehensive global market tracker, where we track the full global timber supply chain from the forest in harvesting to timber production to inventory levels and of course prices around the world. And we also consolidate all of this data to what's the global production or what's the global inventory level. And a few recent updates about us. On the automation side, we have really invested heavily in it, and there is a lot of smart, interesting features that have recently gone live, which I highly recommend that you try, like our existing customers. On the data side, we have a lot more data and analytical tools which help you in your work. And on the inspection side, we have launched now more locations, and the network of inspectors is now much, much bigger. And due to the regulatory changes coming from the United Nations, G7 nations, International Chamber of Commerce, these regulatory changes are a catalyst for trade digitization, and it's going to force the timber industry in the coming years to go digital. And what we're going to see is that these different technologies, like electronic documents, collaboration, smart contracts, and shipment tracking, are going to come together, actually, in a very neat and seamless way. And on the topic of B2B customer service and digital customer service, this technology is now available in a private environment for you and your partners. You can simply add a login button on your website. You can call it My Pages, where your clients can log in and they can have all the data that they need available on their fingertips. And this is, of course, a branded experience with your logo and colors. And combined, what this helps you achieve, that it helps you achieve better prices while significantly reducing the workload through automation, smart documents, and smart workflows, and of course, smart notifications and milestones. And last but not least, we now also offer your timber inspection across nearly all of Europe. We have a wide inspector network that is available to make an assessment on-site at the mill or at the port to check the quality, tolerance, and write a comprehensive report that is both affordable and quick. And now, without further ado, a warm welcome to Mr. Abdelrehman Mubasher. Hello, Abdelrehman.
Hello, Amir. Thank you very much for the warm welcome, and very glad to be with you here today.
Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. You are a true market leader by the definition of the word. You have shaped the timber market in Egypt for many years, and you are also active in many parts of the world. So we really appreciate you coming on. So for those few names that don't know so much about SWEFL or its role in the market or how it maintains its competitive advantage, can you please tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. First of all, thank you very much for the very warm welcome. I'm very humbled and honored for you to mention that. I think really everyone has a role in some way in the global timber market, whether it's a distributor or a sawmill or a trader such as ourselves, or even timber exchange people such as yourself. I know you're doing a lot of work to bring the industry leaders to bring the information together so businesses can make better decisions. So everyone has a role. But if I were to speak about SWEFL and our company, I think I would basically say we specialize in trading quality sawn timber. We were established in 2013. And since then, we have built very strong partnerships with our Scandinavian suppliers, including very prominent companies like Norra Timber, Moelven, Vida, just to name a few, and others, of course. Our business mainly focuses on exporting timber from Sweden to Egypt, as I mentioned. We are a fully family-owned company, and we trade between Scandinavia and Middle East and the North African region as well. And I think we have successfully facilitated the import of over 1 million cubic meters of timber to Egypt through these collaborations. We do around 300,000 cubic meters, give or take, per year annually. And I'd say that, there is no secret sauce or anything for being competitive or having competitive edge in the market. Like I mentioned, it's all about having a strong supplier network and fostering these relationships to be able to maintain this strong presence in the market. We have also streamlined a very strong logistics and end-to-end service, which means we go beyond just supplying timber. We try to manage the entire supply chain in handling the logistics and the client management and the shipping as well. So this, of course, ensures reliability and efficiency in delivering the products, as well as adapting to the very quick changing market, rapid changing market. And despite these challenges that we face in Egypt, like fluctuating shipping costs, like banking issues, like normal regulatory changes, I think we have still maintained our strong presence in the market. And I think we will talk a lot more about these changes and difficulties and challenges during our webinar today.
Very interesting indeed. Thank you so much for the introduction. So we're going to start off a bit easy because some of our friends around the world are not as familiar with the Egyptian market as ourselves or some of the leading sawmills in Scandinavia. So in Egypt, what are the top sectors that consume wood on a regular basis? How are they performing today? And do you see any trends emerging in these sectors?
Well, Amir, I think we have to first understand how big the Egyptian market is. And by understanding that, we need to understand and go back one step to understand how big Egypt is as a population. So Egypt, as a population recorded today, we are around 120 million people, which is relatively huge for a country. And generally speaking, that means more timber to consume. If we go to the top sectors consuming timber and how they are performing today, and let's take it step by step and try to dissect this. And as you say, Egypt is very complex, so we'll try our best today to dissect this and try to explain it as best as possible. So let's start by the most obvious one, and I think this is for all of the markets, the construction sector. And I think Egypt has had a very robust construction and infrastructure sector, which drives much of the demand of softwood. It's mainly used for scaffolding and general building. I think there are some similarities, of course, here with other countries such as Scandinavia, but there are some differences, of course, that we need to address, such as we don't really here in Egypt build using wood necessarily in the format that we do not build full houses of wood, but we generally build the cladding and some of the interiors, but normally not the whole building. But generally speaking, there is a very big push for new urban communities in Egypt, and we are seeing a lot more building happening in Egypt. For example, we have the new administrative capital, the new Alamein city, and of course, the very well-known now Ras Al Hikma, which has significantly increased timber consumption. Growing urbanization, of course. So Egypt has, like I said, very growing population and expanding cities, which fuel also a lot of construction for residential, commercial, and infrastructure projects, which is also contributing to very steady demand for timber in various forms. We have another sector which is performing very well, which is the furniture manufacturing sector, which was thriving in Egypt for quite some time, over 35 years. And this is more centered in areas like Damiata, which is very well known for its demand for softwood, but as well as hardwood and engineered woods like MDF and plywood. And this is used, of course, for its preferred, durability and aesthetic qualities, of course. Then we come to the fourth sector, and this is actually one of my favorites. This is which is the pallets and packaging industry, and we are seeing this industry boom, if you like, because it's quite an emerging market now in Egypt for a couple of reasons. It has been experiencing a lot of growth in recent years, and the reasons being there's a very big growth in e-commerce and retail, and we haven't seen this in quite a few years because we were just not there yet, and we have to understand also the stance of Egypt as an emerging country or an emerging market. So the rise of e-commerce and the expansion of retail chains in Egypt have significantly boosted the demand of packaging materials and pallets. And as these industries continue to grow during and after the COVID-19 pandemic, we will see more efficient logistics and more packaging solutions in this industry. I have to also really quickly mention that Egypt has pushed really drastically the infrastructure building, because without infrastructure and rail networks and good connection of all of the countries together, we cannot then grow this industry. So we've seen a lot of billions of dollars being pumped into these infrastructures, so we can then improve our railway networks and by extension improve pallets and packaging.
Super, super interesting indeed. And one of the things which I also track pretty closely and which is a deep interest of mine is actually furniture production in Egypt. And historically speaking, these companies have been micro enterprises, but now they're growing, they're becoming more internationally capable, going abroad. So furniture export is definitely something that we can expect going forward. And that will also, of course, support both wood consumption, but also drive demand for pallet and packaging like you're mentioning.
Yes.
So we've read a lot about Egypt over the past decade, the ups and downs. But are there any bottlenecks currently for the Egyptian timber market?
Absolutely. Like I said, Amir, it's still, we have to understand that Egypt is an emerging market. Egypt faces several bottlenecks and faces several challenges related to the importation, but also the importation of wood. And wood as a commodity is a very bulky commodity, as we know. It comes in bulk shipments, and the main bottlenecks, I would say, for Egypt is the ports and the logistics delays in the ports. And I'm sure our shipping friends or shipping guys will have a lot to say about this point. But we understand, of course, that port congestion, mainly in Alexandria and Port Said, which is the main two ports in Egypt, often experience a lot of congestion, which causes the unloading to be very slow, It causes the timber to be unloaded in very slow manner, as well as the transportation infrastructure, which I also talked about and mentioned just briefly. These logistics challenges makes it a lot harder for Egypt to improve and make it a lot faster for things to go and the supply chain to go a lot more quicker. So mainly it's a mix of that and also some rising costs of shipping, which we are seeing also a lot of since the past year and a half probably. And this is due to a number of things, but I would say mainly it's due to the tensions rising in the Middle East and the impact this has on the importation is huge. Actually, we have heard about this Houthis, the Yemenis, who are targeting a lot of the vessels which are coming from Europe and other places. Of course, it's affecting the international shipping, but also affecting the Suez Canal, because a lot of the trade that's passing through this area of the Red Sea is passing actually through the Suez Canal. And the Suez Canal typically handles about 10 to 15% of global trade, which is a vital area or vital point in Egypt's economy. So you can understand then how difficult it is as an economical situation for Egypt. And I'm sure we will talk more about this, but of course, you can think about it as a rubber band. With Egypt is trying to invest very much in the Suez Canal, in many other areas, like the construction and the building of many places. But we are finding a lot of also challenges on the other hand. So it's a very tough place to be. But generally speaking, now the shipping costs are getting high. The overall outlook doesn't seem very. I don't want to be, very. I also want to be very optimistic, but this threat poses a lot of drops in the Egyptian economy.
Yeah, Egypt has gone through a few different phases, but it's always solved them really, really well. And it definitely every time comes out stronger on the other end. And the important thing, I think, is to look at and imagine what can actually be achieved over the next decade or two. And I'm pretty sure Egypt will come out being maybe even a global powerhouse on the other side. Egypt has a very young population, a very industrious population, and it's right in front of Europe, and it is essentially in the middle of the world. So there are so many opportunities that can actually be capitalized on. And this is, of course, for the benefit of our friends in Europe who are also supplying the timber. And
adding to this point, Amir, actually, you are completely right, because we are seeing also a big push in the manufacturing facilities from countries such as Turkey and China, which are starting to open up huge factories that are already open in China and Turkey, along the coast of Ain Sokhna, but also at very close to the Suez Canal. So, and this is for the mere reason for Egypt's strategic spot in trading. So they feel like, or they are aware that the logistics of bringing these factories and manufacturing in Egypt with the very low cost of labor will, by extension, make it easier to take these products to Europe and also around in the North African region. So it's completely right. Egypt will eventually handle most of the importation going outside in the area.
Yes. And one of the good things which Egypt did, or that was helpful, or that's going to be very helpful for the economy, is the recent devaluation, which makes Egypt a very attractive investment destination in that sense, and a sourcing hub. And speaking about the dollar, Egypt recently suffered in the past of dollar liquidity issues, and even before that, there were transfer limits when it came to Egyptian banks. How does the situation look now, and what do you see ahead? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I was worried that it was maybe my internet, but very good. I was asking about dollar liquidity issues potentially. Are there any? How is the situation currently, and how do you see it developing in the future?
Well, let me just start by saying I'm in no way a financial expert on the topic. This is merely just factual information and as well experiences from the market that we have experienced in general. So just a disclaimer, but yeah, of course, Egypt continues to face very, very significant challenges with liquidity, the dollar liquidity. This is affecting, of course, the ability to import a lot of the goods, including the timber. Actually, the Central Bank of Egypt has imposed very strict controls of foreign currency transactions, and this was done in an effort to manage the country's forex reserves. So this includes the limits on the use of credit cards for international transactions, and they have put some caps on cards as low as $250. I know this is not important for the importation process, but this is important to understand the level of challenge or the level of, let's say, desperation in the financial situation. But yeah, the ongoing dollar shortage has been exacerbated by inflation, and inflation now has reached around 36% as of last February, compared to around 13.9% 2 years ago. So this has been the record high for inflation in the past 5 years. So you can understand also the level of challenge that the financial situation of Egypt is. But looking ahead, the situation may improve if Egypt, successfully meets the IMF conditions. So right now we have big loans from the IMF and the US, which have also put a lot of pressure on Egypt to meet the requirements of the IMF. And one of those requirements is leaving the state-owned enterprises to be privatized, so more people can work, and this also by extension means a lot more construction, a lot more building, a lot more consumption of raw material. But generally speaking, the volatility of the Egyptian pound is what is making the importation or people very reluctant to buy a lot of the raw material or to even invest in many of Egypt's projects. So with the Egyptian pound, being devalued several times in recent years, it brings a lot of unpredictability. It creates a lot of challenges for importers who face a lot of increased cost. And one example of that is when you have the Egyptian pound at, let's say, 30 US dollar per Egyptian pound 2.5 years ago, and now it has reached around 49 Egyptian pounds in the bank, this alone can increase the cost of raw material, or let's say wood, for softwood. This is around 30 to 35% increase on the raw material, which is a huge increase for the cost of raw material. And you can imagine this ripple effect it can have on the construction, on many of the sectors who are already signed on a lot of the projects and have already priced the project at one level, price or the project on another level because of the fluctuation of the foreign exchange. However, if we look on the bright side, also we now have allocated a lot of dollars in the bank, so we can find the dollars in the bank as opposed to a few years ago, which is a good thing, I suppose. But we still have the ongoing financial situation that needs resolving, and I think we will need to have another investment, a big investment like Ras Al Hikmah to be able to get out of this financial situation.
So currently in Egypt, inflation is still on the way up. If that's right.
Currently, inflation is definitely on the way up, yes, and the currency is quite volatile.
Mm-hmm. But isn't it so that the currency at its peak in the official rate was 52 and then fell to maybe 47, and now it seems to have stabilized around 48, 49. So do you believe it's going in the right direction?
I believe it has been stabilized due to the very big investment that we have gotten from the deal from Ras Al Hikmah. Let's briefly also talk about and stop here on this deal, because this deal was one of the biggest direct investments in Egypt's history. The deal was around 35 billion US dollars for 42,000 acres of land in the northwestern Alexandrian region. And since then, we have found that we have allocated a lot of the dollars in the banks, and we have seen also a stabilized economy, or a stabilized, let's say not economy, let's say a stabilized currency in the bank, like you say, at 48, 49. But the question then becomes, until when can we expect this stabilization to continue? Do we need another big investment or big deal? I think so. I really think that we need foreign direct investment so we can keep the US dollar at a stable level. And this is actually one of the topics that they are talking about now. I'm not also a political expert. I don't want to get into so much politics, but the evaluation now is from the Central Bank of Egypt that they need around 10 billion US dollar to resolve this economic situation or financial situation. We are looking at another land to sell to Saudi Arabia. And this might bring around 7 to 8 billion US dollar as direct investment. And this might keep also the current situation of the currency at bay, but we still need to resolve the root problem, which is the direct domestic manufacturing. The loans that we are taking needs to be also paid out. High interest rates need to come down. So these are the root problems that we need to fix also, because with only direct investment, I don't think we can resolve the situation.
Yeah, I hear from other industrial buyers and traders from around the world that they find their job challenging when timber prices are always on the move and shifting quite rapidly sometimes. So they need to sit with all of their clients and explain and convince them why the price needs to change again this week or this month. And I can only imagine the double whammy that the Egyptian market feels at the same time when the currency is also maybe shifting at the same time. Kind of off-topic question, but you did mention, for example, construction companies. From the time that they sign and sell a contract until they actually, and they get paid usually in installments, as I understand in Egypt, how do they manage this risk?
I think it's a tough question. I think let's compare it also to how it's done in other countries. I think Egypt has a very special way, like you explained here, that they take around 30% upfront from the consumer or the buyer, so they can can buy the raw material and then can start the building process. The real concern here is when with the volatility of the currency and with the volatility of the raw material, then the pricing or the cost of building then becomes a lot higher. How to mitigate this risk? We are seeing a lot of people pegging the cost of the unit to the US dollar, so they can mitigate the risk or remove the risk from the volatility, or else just you have to at least think about putting a markup on the cost, so you don't find yourself being short of raw material or short of capital to build these projects.
Super interesting. And adding that markup is probably what fuels inflation even more. And I've heard about these escalator clauses, especially in the US. So when builders in the US go to build a house, they are allowed to change the price of the house depending on the price of lumber. So they don't really care what the price that they pay for to the lumber yard or to the sawmill.
Yep.
So one of the most important things to track and to understand in the Egyptian timber market is of course, Alexandria and the inventory level in Alexandria. So how does this influence the overall supply chain? How does it influence market prices? And what are some future trends here that you see?
I would say current inventory levels in Alexandria are about 650,000 to 700,000 cubic meters. But this is not counting the rest of the volume at sea, which is around 200,000 cubic meters. How is this influencing the overall supply chain? I think we have to look at the activity in the market, which is, I think, quite low now. What we are seeing as activity in the market now is distributors selling to each other in the market. So there aren't any or very minimal selling to the end user. We are seeing a trend of people only buying what they need as opposed to overstocking timber for various reasons, because of volatility, because of they are reluctant to buy as of now. So yeah, in general, this is the situation that we are seeing now in Alexandria.
It's very interesting when you mention people are buying what they need. So could you very briefly comment on what's maybe moving and what's dead, product-wise?
Of course, product-wise, let's say Egypt is a special country when it comes to buying timber, and I would like to mention also, it's not about how big the volumes are, as opposed to how is it fitting inside the cycle or the circle of products. So meaning, for a sawmill to cut the logs and be able to divide all of the qualities and sell all of the qualities, I think Egypt plays a very important role, and the important piece of the puzzle is they take a full spectrum of qualities, starting from on a Scandinavian grading quality, starting from the unsorted quality, all the way down to the seventh quality. So this is why I say it's an important piece of the puzzle, because we have like the lower grades sometimes can only go to countries like Egypt. And I'm sure also some of the sawmills will probably know more about this than I do. But in general, what is working now? What is working now is the narrower dimensions, so the 25 millimeters, the 19 millimeters by 100, by 125, by 150, by 175. These are generally the dimensions that are working now. The reason being that people and the end user in the market tends to go to the things that are less costly. So the let's say the not so standardized dimensions are a bit lower priced. So this is why we see more people going to these reduced or discounted, let's say, dimensions. They tend to turn to this during this time because the cost of products is now higher because of volatility and because of the currency. So generally speaking, narrower dimensions and lower grades this is what we are seeing more of.
Very, very interesting. Does that mean that the packaging market is, you said that consumption overall is at a low level today, but does that mean that the packaging sector is the most active and that maybe construction and furniture are, there's lesser activity in those?
Absolutely. I would say we are seeing a lot more packaging and pallets being produced. And this is also the reason being, like I mentioned, the growth of e-commerce and the infrastructure being a lot more improved now. So we are seeing a lot more dimensions going to these pallets and packaging, like the 19 millimeters, like the 16 millimeters. So these are the dimensions which are very, very active at the moment.
Okay.
Construction is the projects, state-owned projects are being hauled right now because of the tensions in the Middle East and the rising costs. But I think it will not take too long. I think they will start to build again in the near future. So,
one question, a bit off topic but still on topic. Consumption is low. What has to happen for consumption to restart again, and maybe not reach, a high level, but at least reach a medium level?
I think it's a good question. I think for consumption to reach a stable level, we need to first look at the stocks in Alexandria. So there needs to be a balance of the activity and the dimensions or the volume coming out and the volume coming into Egypt. So like I mentioned, there is around 200,000 cubic meters coming at sea, with a lot more stocks in Egypt now trying to get out. So this is one thing. For consumption also to increase, we need to find the right demand. So finding the right demand means we need to have, it's really a rippling effect. So we need to find the projects starting up again. We need to have a stable, somewhat stable economy, somewhat stable currency for people to be safe enough to buy. Because when it comes to these panics or sometimes uncertain moments, people tend to stay safe with buying, and especially with high interest rates, people tend to leave some money in the bank as opposed to going out and operating and making new business.
Very, very interesting. In Shanghai, for example, it's very easy to track both the inventory level and the consumption level because the market is very transparent. So as a rule of thumb, if inventory levels are equivalent to 3 months consumption, that means that the market is doing worse, which is currently the case. And if the inventory level is equal to 2 months consumption, the market is doing pretty good, actually. So it's around 50% quicker consumption. So when it's 2 months inventory, that's a very good indication on the market. So these 900,000, which are in the yards and on the way, is that it sounds like this is becoming a burden for the Egyptian market.
I'd say 600 to 700,000 is not on the high end of inventory. I think this is normal stocks for Alexandria. But yes, I believe that we need to think about the balance of shipping from the outside and taking it all to Egypt. I think it's more and more becoming in Egypt a matter of what do we need as opposed to let's take full stocks of everything, because now it's I personally think also that volatility in Egypt was very high in the past 10 years. So we could see a lot more hikes or spikes in the prices, and also as well declines in the prices. I think this period has been very minimized or has come to a stop because of many things, because of we have already interconnected the systems for tariffs and for taxes and for everything that has to do with documentations, which makes it a lot more compact as an economy and as an importation system. So when the system becomes more rigid, I think we will find that there is more stability in the prices, especially in Egypt.
Very, very interesting. Skipping ahead a little bit, on looking at the policy side, this is, of course, something that affects the timber market sometimes more than others. But are there any policies currently shaping the Egyptian timber market directly or indirectly? Or are there any upcoming changes that can have a major impact, maybe?
Sorry, Amir, you cut off there for a second.
Apologies. The question was about policies. Do you see any policy shifts that can affect the Egyptian timber market?
Policies, Egypt is also, let's say, very special in making policies because, and this is something I would really want to see a change in. Policies in Egypt, they can take 1 day to make and let's say 3 days to implement, but people are not ready for this change in amendments or this change of policies. So I would like to see more of these policies being implemented, but on 6 months period or 4 months period, so people can get ready for the change in policies. But generally also speaking, we are seeing one policy that might affect the timber business in Egypt, and this is with regards to the building policy, and this policy was already in action since 2008, and this had to do with building, so freely building, but you had to go and take the right permits to build as many stories as you want. Now there has been an amendment during 2021, I believe, which said that you cannot build over 4 stories high, and you can only build on 70% of the land. So there's 30% that you cannot build on. Now they have redirected again to the old policy. So you can now build on 100% of the land, and you can take the right permits to build more than 4 stories. What this means for timber or for the wood business, I think we are going to see more building. And of course, when you build on 100% of the land, it automatically means it will cost much less.
Very, very interesting. Isn't it so also that this policy, the previous policy, when it came into play, at least with my limited understanding, was that it hampers construction inside of major cities. And now this policy reverts that so that you can actually build in Cairo, you can build in Alexandria. Does the policy affect the location as well, by any chance?
Yes. So they had a collective policy for all of the cities that they cannot build without any permits. And this goes back also to a very important point, which is it takes a very, very prolonged time to take the right permits so you can build. It can take up to 6 months even for people to take the right permits to build on. Let's say if you can also build at 70% with the old policy, it takes a very long time. Now they have divided it into each city can take the permit from their respectable government or people. So this will save also a lot more time. And like you say, it will make it a lot easier to play around with building in those cities.
Very, very interesting indeed. And hopefully this will boost Egyptian timber consumption and help Egypt reach back to the volumes that it was importing already in 2015, 2014, which were significantly more than it is importing today. But of course, any such big change in policy was going to take at least 6 to maybe even 18 months to start seeing the full effect. 2 more questions before we jump into the Q&A session. Abdelrehman, what's your outlook in summary for the Egyptian timber market?
So, sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Yes. What is your outlook for the Egyptian timber market?
My outlook for the Egyptian timber market, I would say it's a mix of everything that we have mentioned. So basically, I believe that it will take time so I don't think there will be a lot of change or major spikes or declines. I think we are at the sweet spot for both the sawmill or the suppliers and down here for the distributors. I think we will see stability at least for the next 3 to 5 months until the activity comes back and until we clear out all of the overstock or the, let's say, older packages in the market. But generally speaking, it's very, very unpredictable, and it's very difficult to put a plan or some kind of outlook for the market because of the major uncertainty in the region. There's a lot of rising tension in the Middle East right now. So I think we will have to let's say, wait and see for what will happen in the region.
Very, very interesting as well. And a final question about technology. Egypt was among the first countries, if not the first, to implement digital supply chain technologies for export-import, including blockchain for document transfers, also known around this group as CargoX. So with the UN expected to roll out more such policies for digital trade over the coming few years, already by 2026, how do you see Egypt adapting or leading in this space?
Yeah, it's exactly like you have mentioned. It's Cargo X is one of the first steps towards blockchain technology. Let's first explain to the audience what Cargo X is very briefly. So it's came into action around, let's say, 3 to 4 years, and it's used by Egypt to digitalize the bill of lading process, which allows for more secure and efficient document transfers. And of course, this has significantly improved port operations, particularly in Alexandria, where inefficiencies previously caused delays, like we have mentioned earlier. Egypt, I think, is in the right spot to adopt more blockchain for trade facilitation. Like I said, it's implemented some blockchain streamline document transfers. The customs processes is now much more efficient. The trade-related paperwork is a lot easier to do. And this early adaptation places Egypt ahead of many developing economies in integrating digital solutions into its supply chains. So to answer your question, this will generally also continue in the right direction, I believe.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing because not a lot of innovation has actually happened in global trade. And in this sense, Asia and the GCC and North Africa, or at least Egypt, seem to be leading in this space. So we really are front runners and a prime example, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. So now we will be jumping straight into the Q&A session. Down below, there's a button for the audience called Q&A. If you have a question to Abdelrehman, please submit it there and I'll be asking. Unfortunately, we will not be able to comment on any prices or politics, of course, which I hope you all will respect. We'll wait a minute until a few questions come in, and until then, I will be commenting on the market. So, currently, because we track in Timber Exchange how the global timber market is production, from the forest until consumption of softwood sawn timber, and only that. We're hyper-focused on that. We consolidate all of this data. So we can see that global production is actually on the way down. This is good for balancing global supply demand. And what this also then means for inventory levels, and this is very, very interesting, and this is very important, something that you must take a note of. And we can overlay this with prices, of course. But when global inventory levels start to reach 23 million, US, Canada, Sweden, Finland, all these markets combined, Egypt, China, all of these markets combined, when it reaches 22 or 23 million cubic meters, it really starts affecting global market confidence. And then it takes a quarter or two to come down again. And that is when we see a sharp increase again. And now we can clearly see that we have reached the top of the market and that it's starting to come down again. We can see also on the pricing side for logs that it's becoming very expensive to produce timber. And this is something that industrial buyers around the world really, really need to understand. supported by the production side. We can see all around the world that production is on the way down as well. In Egypt, inventory levels are high. In Shanghai, inventory levels are high as well. And there are a few good signals actually that are important to understand. US repair and remodel spend is on the way up. And in Sweden, renovations and DIY has actually, for the first time in a very long time, started trending upwards. It's upwards from very low levels, but it is definitely a step in the right direction. Now, without further ado, let's jump straight into the Q&A session. Let's see what questions you've received, Abdelrehman. The first question is from George. Hello, George. He's asking, what are the common lumber sizes for making pallets?
Common lumber sizes for making pallets, I'd say 19 by 100, 19 by 125, also 25 by 100, 16 by 75, and 16 by 100. Those are the ones that I know of, at least.
Yes, and I think it's pretty common all across the world as well.
Yep.
And I know George very well. He's definitely a market expert. He's very strong in the Asian markets and the North American markets. The next question is from Abdelila. Hello, Abdelila. He's asking, what is more available in Egypt, spruce or pine?
I think both are available at very good levels. But generally, when you talk about percentage, I think, let's say 40% spruce, 60% pine, 40%, something like that.
Mm-hmm. The next question is from Hani. Hello, Hani. He's asking, how did the market share of Russian timber in Egypt change during the past 2 years and its effect on the demand for Swedish and Finnish timber?
Very good question, because I think there's some rumors or theories going around that Russian timber has declined in Egypt. I think this is partly true when sanctions were quite rigid past few years, but now I think Russian timber is at normal levels. We are getting same shipments or same volumes that we were getting before. But having said that, we still have some sanctions, but I would say very loose sanctions on some vessels. But generally, I think there will be some competition from Russia because of also the big volumes coming in from Russia. That's, let's say, around 1.5, 1.7 million per year, as opposed to Finnish inventory, Finnish volumes coming at around 1.2. And Sweden coming after that by around 900,000. So you will see some kind of competition for Scandinavia against the Russian.
Capable to offer.
Absolutely. 6 meters is very popular in Egypt.
Very, very interesting. Do we have any more questions? We will wait a few more seconds. No, that seems to be everything. Abdelrehman, sincere pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insights, your thoughts with us. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Amir, for having me.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much. And to the audience as well, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it. Over the coming weeks, you can expect more episodes. In 2 weeks, we're interviewing the president of the Latvian Sawmilling Association, and thereafter a major importer in China as well. So thank you all very much. Thank you again, Abdu. And
thank you very much, Amir.
thank you. Bye-bye.